bloody freezing, and I come from the UK. So my parents are back over in the UK at the moment. They've got really nice hot weather, so I'm not really happy about that. So thank you very much today. I'm just going to go through talking about feeding when we haven't got reindeer pasture in the paddocks, and also we've got this hay shortage. So that's what I'm here today to talk to you about. If you can, please, because otherwise we'll be here until about midnight, if you can let me get all the way through the presentation, and then I'll do questions at the end if you don't mind, please. So basically at the moment, we've got this lack of rain that we all know about. We've got no water in the dams, we've got no water in our tanks as well. It's been a right pickle, really. It was the perfect storm. There was a very quick end to the season. It dried off everything about late September, early October, bang, the water shut off, and it was a very quick end to the season. It was a very hard finish. So the yields weren't there for the hay. Yields, I know a lot of producers were down in yields between 30 to 60%. So if that puts it into perspective, and then because we didn't have any summer rain as well, it was the perfect storm. There was nothing was growing unless you've got retic, and then you're very, very lucky. But yeah, it was the perfect storm. So that's why you're seeing a lot of different hays, or a lot of different people putting up hays at the moment. And that's all the reason why. It's hay producers just basically didn't get the yields. The good hay producers that were there, they had some really quality hay, but the quantity was way down. So it wasn't that. And the reason why do we need forage, and why do we need grass in our paddocks, it impacts our health of our horses. The horse is designed to be a trickle feeder. It's not designed to be fed there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and then, or whenever you want to. It likes routine. It likes to have food all the time there. They're designed to be eating 20 hours a day. They need forage to stimulate saliva. They need forage in their mouth. They're the only type of animal that actually needs feed in its mouth to stimulate saliva. And people forget that. That's why you'll see lots of horses cribbing and bits and pieces like that. And then they also need to have that fibre, and then broken down. They need to have their digester into the hind gut for that weight to stop it from doing somersaults in the hind gut. We've also seen, and we've heard of too many horses this year have had sand colic. We've heard so many horses that have had impaction as well, and that's not due to the sand, it's also due to a lot of people just going out and feeding straw. And we've also seen an increase in ulcers, also pyloric, and also glandular as well. The sand colic, that's a given because they're all grazing too close to the ground, because there's a little tiny shoot of grass poked up and they're going, yes, there's grass, I want the grass. But when they do that, they pull that tuft of grass up and they ingest all the soil and the sand, and they're getting down to where the grass is really dirty as well, so they're getting all that. It's dirt basically, and picking up all the soil that we don't want them to have. We're also seeing a lot of people that are doing the merry-go-round on getting fibre at the moment. One time they're feeding wheat, and the next minute they're getting oat, and the next minute they're getting roads, and the next minute they're getting vetch, and it's just the horse's biome is going, what the hell? We just can't deal with this. Its biome is actually having a meltdown. And so we've also seen some shocking hay for sale at absorbent prices. There's people gouging horse owners at the moment. They want slapping, they really do. I won't use the word that I normally use about them, but and also people forget, and this is the biggest thing, when you talk to hay producers, people forget that hay is only grown once a year. It's not grown all the time. We are not that lucky. We're not like Queensland where they can get a couple of crops a year. Hay is only cut once a year for us, and that's it. And it's just like I was at a hay producer that I deal with not too far away from here, and there's a lady rocked up and everything like that to pick up her hay, and she said to Phil, oh, and how's your hay crop looking for next year? And this was in March, and Phil went to the paddock over there, and it was just bare dirt, and he said, have a look, love. And it was just nothing there. So we've got to change people's perception as well, that hay's only cut once a year. And when that's it. And also we don't have the luxury of to import hay from the eastern states. We've got such strict biosecurity rules and regulations that we can't just bring hay willy-nilly over. And if you've ever been across to the eastern states competing, you'll know all about that. Rhodes hay, that's usually cut, that's earlier in the season because that usually comes up north from up on the flats up there at the pivots, thank you. And they cut them up there and that's that. But even the Rhodes hay, because one of the main people, those suppliers, that's shut down as well. So we've lost some Rhodes hay as well, and that wasn't the best of times to do it. Shit happens. And so then we've got cereal hay, which will then come down more of the wheat belt. That comes around October time when that's cut, and then more November time, depending if the weather's going to play ball, because meadow hay takes a lot more dealing with when you're cutting it. It's not like cereal hay, you just cut and forget. You've actually got to turn it, you've got to get it aerated to grow good cotton meadow hay. And also the main thing as well, just because we've had a little sprinkling of rain, I've seen so many people go, oh, it doesn't matter now, I can turn my horse out under my pasture. And I'm like going, oh shit, please don't. And it's just like that thing, that's it now, they think they don't have to feed any more hay. And that's why you'll see me rocking in a corner, usually sucking my thumb, usually with massive gin, and things like that. And so today, basically, what we're going to go through, I'm not going to preach to you about some things because you'll all go, oh, listen to that. You live in a dream world, so I'm trying to be practical here for you as well. So hopefully these notes help you. Next one, please. Aha! So, the next one off the block is roughage is always going to be priority. This is my mantra. They will put the lid on my coffin and I'll be saying this. The digestive system of a horse is designed to consume forage. Long gone are the days where we were used to say that the horse only needs 1% fibre in its diet per day to have a healthy gut. We know so much more now. We're getting there with what we know and our knowledge. It's starting to improve. So we're not just going to feed 5 kilos of hay to our horses per day. We know that they need more. They need more weight. They need that forage to have a healthy gut. We've always known that there was issues, but now we've got a lot more tools at our advantage. We can scope horses, we can look at them inside and out from both ends now just about, and we can find out a lot more that was going wrong. So that's why we say they need more forage, because we need to stop the acid from splashing up onto the non-glandular portion of the stomach. They need that forage in the stomach to keep the acid from splashing up, because they secrete acid all the time. Normally a horse, and normally I've got it here with me, but I forgot it today, it's about 1.5 litre bottle, if you can think about that. That is how much acid is produced by a horse's stomach over an hour. And that is continual, that never ever stops. So if you see average Joe in the paddock and he hasn't got anything to eat, it is basically over that hour that acid will just go bubble, boil trouble, and if there's nothing in there, it'll splash onto the stomach, and that's why we see so many ulcers around the small curvature, because that's where there's more, the non-glandular portion of the stomach is closer to the acid down that, and so that's why we like to keep that forage just clinging all the time, so it just keeps that cap on the acid for the horses. We've got several sources of roughage where it can come from. We've got C4 grasses, so that's your kike, it's your buffalo, and your teff, or a little bit of ropes as well is classed as those pastures, and then your C3 varieties, your cockscomb, your timothy, your fescues, all those other lovely C3 grasses that I grew up with, and there's all those ones. You've got your forage types. You'll see a few weird and wonderful ones coming onto the market. There's some blend. I think I've even seen some rodents come down from up north as well, so that's a blend of open and rose, that's come down from up north. But mostly you see your ryegrass mix, meadow mix, open, wheaten, lucerne, rose and teff, which is the new kid on the block, and also your vetch as well. Those are usually your main ones. Your shandy, your chaps, you're going to have a shandy of either wheaten and lucerne, or open and lucerne, your open wheaten and lucerne, and your green mix for your little fat ponies, or your ones that you're just trying to everything, they go usually like, oh, hellfire, I don't like that, and they'll usually backpedal about it. Another kid on the block for looking for fibre sources is multi-cubes. They come from over east because they can get in because they're in a sealed tight plastic bag, and that's why they can get in across the border. And they're really well designed hay cubes, so you have to put them in water, a bit like LFB, liquid fibre boost or liquid fibre cubes, and they fluff them up and then you can give those. They're great for older horses that have got poor dentition, or you've got horses that have had some mouth injury or something like that, or you just want them, you can also use it a little bit as a chaff as well. You've got your super fibres, they're another source of forage for your horse, your looping holes, your beet pulps, your soil holes, your coppers, anything like that. Copper is a little bit, we don't really use it as a total fibre source because of the sugars and starches. And then straw. Straw, some people will tell you, you can go ahead and feed over 50% of straw to your horse. Well, that's fine. That was in an actual research environment where that was done. And when they actually used the straw, it was nutritionally improved. So it was softened. So the horses, you found it a lot more palatable to actually eat. Because a lot of the time, if you put some hay and you mix straw through it, the horses are pretty good, smarter than the average bear. And they'll eat the meadow hay first, and then you can see they're a little bit like a kid and you're trying to hide broccoli into something. They'll sort out the good bits first and then they'll leave the straw to the end. So it's a really good thing to extend, like putting bread on the table if you're trying to fill a teenage kid up or something like that. Use it to extend your fibre, but don't never, ever, ever please use it as a sole intake of fibre to your horses. I do not advise horses that have had a history of ulcers or colic to go onto straw as well. They just cannot handle the thickening or the insoluble fibre that's in the straw. So basically, why is straw the priority? Sorry, why is forage the priority? Oh my God, I've got straw on the brain. I've been dealing with that many horses that have had straw just lately. It's become one of those things. So please no more horses that are eating straw at the moment and that have got ulcers, please no more. Oh, you'll see me. It's just like Joe will put a note as it comes through. It's another one and I'm like going to come. Anyway, so when your pasture is limited, and it is at the moment, it's only just its stunted growth. It had a really nice boost, we had some rain, it was really going, and then everything just went, it went cold, it went, and your grass just went, no, I can't grow anymore. And so that's why we always try to get some, in the ideal world, if we've got the ideal horse, and we've got the ideal bank account, we'd love to provide ad-lib forage to our horses. And we know this is always impossible. So we need to look at some of the types of hay. So we've got your lucerne, we've got your teff or a thing like that. When you talk to the people, the bigwigs, and they're doing all the research and they don't see a great deal of light, they usually look a bit shocked and a little bit horrified when somebody comes and talks to them. But they're doing the research for them. And when you actually talk to them, it's a really good idea to mix the different types of hay sources that you've got. Across here, okay? Yeah. She was looking at me and I was like, what was that there? So it's a really good idea to look at the different sources that you've got and vary the different sources. Coming from the UK and also working in the US, when the hay that we get comes in, we've got about between 7 to 8, maybe about grass types that come into our hay. So we've got a really big, broad variety of grasses in our hay that we get. And that's fantastic for the horse's biome, because it's got all these different lovely grasses to work on, and that did give them all different things, and so it's great. Then we come across the WA, and you've got very strict, when you talk to people, they'll say, oh, I only feed open, and that's it. And you go, anything else? And they go, no. And so all that does is deliver that type of bugs and bacteria, that type of bacterial population for the horse's hind gut. Bang! That delivers that very acidic, very starch-loving type of bacteria. So what we're trying to you start to give different hay, so if you're using, we'll take for example, we're using a fatty, and so you might use a bit of meadow hay, a bit of lucerne, at the right variety, at the right type, the amount for the poning, and some rows or something like that. And that's good because you're starting to give different varieties and broaden the population. And that's not a bad thing. But the only issue happens is when you start to introduce that new hay too quick. The horse's biome is very, very sensitive. It takes time to produce a new population of bugs and bacteria. So when you give a new feed or something like that, the biome is sat there with his clipboard and he's going, never seen this one before, how are we going to digest this? And it goes, don't know, never seen this. Which population am I going to have to use to break this feed down, to ferment it down in the hind gut? And it can't do that. So it'll send it and create a different lactate portion of bacteria. And so that's not good. And so it takes time, and it's a long time in actual fact, to build up a new population. We see a minimum, like any hay should be introduced into a diet or anything like that, is over 14 to 21 days. And I appreciate that always doesn't happen because you'll go to your stock feeders or something like that. But hopefully people will try and get a little bit ahead of the game and be able to store a little bit of hay. So the longer the time we've got to swap and to introduce new hay types, the better. And this is all because of the horse's digestive systems and metabolic issues. There was one lady not that long ago, and she had a horse, and she messaged me and she said, my horse has lost the plot. He's coming at me like he's like Mike Tyson. And so I said to her, well, can you give me a brief idea of what's happened? So the horse had been on pasture most of its life, and then because the pasture had dried off, she put it onto meadow hay. Then it went to the breakers, it went onto open hay. Then it came back home, it went onto a different meadow hay and a teff hay. Then she said she couldn't get any more of that hay, so it went on to a roads mix. And the horses and this was done, so I said, well, to her, I said, how long did you change the hay over? Thinking, hopefully, please, nice amount of time. And she said, oh no, I didn't change time, I just plonked it out in the field. And she said, this horse had just gone off its absolute nut. And so basically the horse was screaming at her saying, yeah, I can't deal with this, I need time to change the bacteria over. And so we do say this, and it's not just us saying it, there is research to actually back this up. It's not just me stood up here going, you should do this, you should do that. There's actual research and benefits for you, because nobody wants to give the vet more of our hard-earned money if we can help it. We can also add some more fibre sources to the feeds if we want to as well. If we can't get as much as we want to, we can look at using some of the hulls or something like that. And we also try to keep, also trickle grazing, trying to keep as much roughage into those horses as possible. The minimum without forage is always going to be 4 hours, and that's your limit. So if you've been doing something, and you'll also see a lot of the time what we always advocate before you start to ride, if you're not sure how long average Joe's been stood in the paddock without any fibre or anything like that, we always say add some fibre or some hay or some chaff just before you go and ride. And that's again, so it's between anywhere between 250 grams up to a good kilo and over sometimes if you think, not quite sure how long he's been without hay. So we do that, we allow them to chomp down on that. The chomping and the chewing creates saliva, and then that forage will get chomped up and chewed up, then it goes onto the top of the horse's stomach, and we want it to stop there. We don't want it to go any further and go into the small intestine. We actually want it to stop in the stomach, and we want it to hang there on top of the acid, form a good thick base, so when the acid splashes up, it can't get through that thick base of fibre. And fibre takes about that length of time, anywhere between, depends on the acidity, because horses' acid Also the moles of acid are also different as well. So you have some horses that have really highly acidic stomachs, and some are a little bit more to the alkaline as well. But on average, between 2 and 4 hours it takes for the acid to break through that pad, and then so that's why we always do that. So we try and avoid ulcers, and we also try and avoid colic. Yeah, the two worst words and that we can think about. Next one, please. Okay, so this is reason why we say this. It's not just me just harping on about it. There is research behind it, and this is why we want you to change your haze over slowly to avoid colic. And that's 22 times. If you just go wham bang, thank you ma'am, the next day you're going to completely different hay. You really do increase your risk of colic, and so that's why we say it. And also when you introduce a horse to pasture as well, say if you've had one and it's been locked up for a laminitis, anything like that, we also really put the brakes on that to allow it, because they'll go at it like a kid after a buggy or something like that. They really do get hungry, and they will crack on like you would not believe. It's like mine when I go to the farriers, because we haven't got any pasture at the moment, and where I go to the farriers, they've got beautiful Kaifuyu, and my two nutters just see it, and I'm trying to wrestle a quarter horse and a miniature Shetland, usually that way round that, or that because the miniature's trying to tow me to the grass. So always introduce your pasture slowly as well to those guys if they've had any metabolic problems like laminitis. We usually say start on about 15 minutes for about 3 days. Keep an eye on the tutsies, see if there's any heat or penile pulses occur or anything like that. But also introduce them to pasture again slowly. Otherwise you get the swap booze, and then you're going, well, I've got colic again, or I've got laminitis. So that's again why we introduce those slowly. It's an actual fact, it was a really nice piece of research, that really did. I really did enjoy reading that. If you're a nerd and you like things like that, it's a really good piece of research to look at. So this is how, usually sometimes I recommend people to swap and change over feeds if you can. And this will be, say, if you want to introduce a new feed to your horse's diet, you can use that. You can take it longer if you want to. If you've got like an absolute, does anybody have Arabs?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, you don't throw things at me. Usually it's Arabs. I usually say go a little bit slower, because usually they're more of a princess. Usually you can even go 30 to 36 days to introduce a new feed. Usually like you put it in, they go, oh my God, I found it. I don't like that. So you can even go slower. So just that's rough guideline, but you can go slower. If you've had to change onto a cereal hay and you go, oh my God, he's going to put on weight, he's going to look like a balloon, his neck's going to go crusty, soak it for roughly about an hour, and you'll leach out about 30% of the sugars. Why? We say an hour, and you'll jump online and there'll be people, I have soaked your hay for 16 hours. They do not live where we live. No, we're okay at the moment, you can soak a little bit longer, but also the amount of sugar that's in oat, it will leach out thanks to osmosis, so it leaches out into the water because there's so much sugar, and then there's no more sugars can come out. It's leached out as much as it can, and so you need to tip that water away and re-soak it again if you want to leach a few more out. Also, when it's the summertime and it's about 30 odd degrees or something like that, any longer than an hour, then all of a sudden it starts to ferment, and that's not good. We don't want that. So if you're going to quickly soak your hay, feed it out. Don't let it sit there all day, then you come back and then pull it out and then feed it to your horse, especially in the summertime, because it'll become funky and you'll start to get some weird and wonderful things will happen. If you have swapped onto a hay and they've gone, hey, I'm not eating that, hey, do not like that. It's great if you've got a horse and you're able to use molasses, fantastic, that really helps, make it to loosen, spritz, that helps really nicely. Or honey, if you want to use something like that. But if you've got a horse and it's really sensitive to sugar, or Cushing's disease or anything like that, a really good thing to do, and grab from the not stop feed, as soon you want to use sugar, stevia, sugar substitute, or you can make that into spritz, or you can soak the hay a little bit quicker than dung, and that will really make it sweeter for the horses to taste. To eat, they quite like it, they don't mind it as much. Stevia has been proven to not affect insulin, which is another thing. If you are out and about, another one to use, and you've got a princess, and again, they won't drink the water where you've gone, go and grab some cordial, the sugar-free cordial. It's got stevia in it, and I'm trying to, it's Bickford's, that's the name, actually got that one, that was good. It's Bickford's cordial. The raspberry one is brilliant, they really do like that one. Pop that into your water and it will help them to drink, especially if you've got also a horse at the moment that might drink, because it's gone a bit cold. Don't feed too cold water as well, put a bit of warm water in, because horses don't like too cold water, and they'll like help them to drink a bit more as well. But that cordial is fantastic. And also, yeah, in hot weather, you can soften your poorer quality straw or bits and pieces of, soften it in hot water, or again spray something nice on it to try and tempt it to make it palatable. For some horses, they'll just like, I'm not eating that, I will not eat that, you cannot get them to touch that at all. When you've got a new supplier for hay, be cautious when you purchase new hay. Ask questions. Do not take it for granted. Do not take Facebook. Do not take the person down the road's aunties, uncles, brothers, cousins, mother's brother word for it. Has that hay been tested? Ask for test results and see the actual test results. Not that long ago, one of the best hay producers in Trolloway was on the internet Trolloway. Somebody, a client sent a piece of paper through to me. I found some hay, and I was like, hey, good for you. And she said, oh, look at the test results. And I went, I know those test results. The only time I ever let my hay producer test his own hay, he let the hay probe go into the soil. And then he went carried on, so he put the hay probe down. So when we sent the hay off to be tested to the USA, the iron levels were over 400 parts per million. And so slapped him around a bit. So I went and retested the hay again, and did it myself as I should have done, and the test results came back really low. And these test results we've put up, but the chap who had written these hay test results hadn't seen the caveat at the bottom, do not look at the iron results at all. All he'd done, he'd cut, pasted and copied and slapped the test results onto his hay. He'd actually used the yes, you know what I'm talking about as well, and actually used the ARGT certificate. All he did was cut off the top bit where the name and address was and the date, and he'd actually used the ART certificate as well. And when we actually challenged him, what he said was, horse owners will believe anything. I wanted to, it's mostly one, I won't say what somebody else said as well. So check the certificates, make sure it's possible. Do your research where the hay is coming from. Is it an area where ARGT is prevalent? Ask as well. Do your research. Be a detective on Facebook. Ask about and get to see the hay. Do not take the person that they'll have a perfect bale, ta-da, for you to see. Get there early, get there late, be a bit sneaky, have a look about and check for barley grass, any signs of weeds, molds, has it been stored outside, and so you see that great big ring around the outside where you're thinking, well, that's a waste of money, and something like that. Make sure the hay that you're getting is going to be safe to your horses to eat, even if you're desperate. There are other ways, and people will always help as well. And remember, it always should come from a trusted seller, and we need to start to be asking more of these hay producing people that are charging $250. I think the most I've seen was $320 for a 5-foot roll, and that was somebody on selling somebody's hay as well. We need to start to ask for these certificates. Where was quickly, when we're in WA and we send a lot of people will send hay analysis over to the Eastern States, it's done by NRI, and that gives you between a range. It doesn't actually give you what it says on the right. It doesn't give you that, that's it. It gives you a range. And so that's why when we send any analysis across, you'll see it will be done by analytical, and that's usually done in the USA, and that's by wet chemistry, and that gives you an accurate result. When we send it over east, our haze tests really, really differently. So because they need over 1,000 hay samples to test for that season to get an accurate result, to calibrate the machine. So when we send our hay samples over, our hays are grown in a lot different conditions to over east, and so they come back differently. The protein will be always higher, and the sugars will always be lower. And we're not talking a little bit, we're talking between 10 and 20% difference. And that's a lot when you're looking at a horse that is a metabolic one as well. And so that's why we like to send it up to the US to get some really good samples. Then we know where it's been done, we know it's been tested correctly. But if you want to test for ARGT, that's the ag department, and they have it all online. That way you drop it in South Perth, it's a kilo's worth, and it's a damn sight better at getting your hay tested for ARGT than it is to actually deal with it. So, and it's not just meadow hay. People have this conception that it's just meadow hay that ARGT happens to. I don't know ryegrass toxicity, so it happens to. It is, and it can crop up in any haze. And a lot of the time you'll find it will be in open hay because the ryegrass wasn't sprayed out. And so be cautious. Maybe just take it for granted. Oh, I'm feeding open hay, I don't have to worry about that. Or if I'm feeding this, I don't have to worry. Always be cautious. Don't use silage, please. I think that's a given. Haylage is fine. It's a different dry matter content compared to silage. Silage is wrapped at a lot quicker stage and cut a lot earlier. And so the horses, because they can't belch, they can't be sick, they can't actually get rid of the gas that's created from the silage. That's why it's not suitable at all. If somebody had some last year's season hay, God forbid, how the hell do you keep it this long? But last season's hay is also good to use if it's been stored correctly. If it's been shedded, if it's off the ground, mice haven't decided to make nests in it, or rats, or finding people's dinosaurs wedged in there when the hay's being cut. That was another interesting one. But yeah, last year's hay is fine to use as long as it's clean and it's mold-free. But because there'll be no fat-soluble vitamins, that hay loses fat-soluble vitamins really quickly in WA. Within about 3 months of your hay being cut, all your vitamin E is gone. And so it's about 4 to 6 months afterwards, all your vitamin A in your hay, that's gone as well. So you'll need to replace those, which is quite simple to do. Fat-soluble vitamins, and also the protein quality will start to slide down as well. So you might have to up the lysine and the methionine. Normally theanine is really easy to hit, so we don't have to worry about too much. And that's the main 3 essential amino acids for the horse, with lysine being the one. So if a horse hasn't got enough lysine in its diet, doesn't matter how much feed and protein that you throw at the horse, all you're doing is basically the horse is just pissing it away. So you've got to make sure that you hit the lysine requirement for your horse, and then all of a sudden your horse can access the protein and bang, it puts on weight. And sometimes it's just as simple as 6 grams of lysine can make all the difference between the horse is able to absorb all the protein and put on weight, look fantastic, look really good and spunky, and not. So yeah, it's so cheap to do as well. Lysine isn't expensive. You don't have to get the all singing, all dancing Fruit Loop ones that people tart up. Just go and buy the box standard kilo of lysine. It's cheap, it's easy, and it does what it says on the tin. And yeah, so that's a really good one to do as well. And we have to sometimes tempt those guys to eat the new hay. That's why we introduce it slowly so they get used to the different smell or taste or texture. And then you'll hopefully touch wood, and then there's always that horse that always lets you down and always does something completely different. But we try as best as we can to try and help horse owners. Right, hay quality. energy and nutrients and how much volatile fatty acids the horse is going to be able to extract from that hay. And so these are things that you'll see up on the hay analysis, and that measures the fibre content of the hay, and that will be the lower, which is usually the other way around, but the lower that the NDF and ADF is, the more easily that the horse is going to be able to break down that hay and extract all the nutrients, get all the starches, break all that down to fantastic volatile fatty acid, namely acetic acid in the hindgut over with that fermentation. And then the higher that the NDF is, that means that it's more insoluble fibre. The horse actually takes more energy to actually break down that fibre, and so it won't have as many calories, or it'll take a lot longer, and it won't get as fat, hopefully, as well. When we start to look at the fibres as well, if you ever see any hay analysis or anything, we don't tend to advocate anything over 69%, because then the NDF is going to be too high for a horse. It'll be fine for donkeys, not a problem. Donkeys can go to about 80% NDF. They can absolutely break it down. They have fantastic bugs and bacteria, but not horses, not ponies, and please not miniature Shetlands. People think, oh, it's a miniature, it'll be able to eat that. It can't. Miniatures are really prone to impaction colic, so don't just pump a miniature full with straw or anything like that. You can use yours and a bit of meadow hay. But look at the NDF to make sure that it's able to break it down. We still, when we say we can mix and match our straws and hays, we can make sure there's a little bit of like your straw with your higher NDF, which will take them longer to eat. They'll usually eat that last. They're going to be chewing that for longer. They keep it chewing. Chewing creates saliva. So our over buffers the stomach acid, and it's one of those knock-on effects. We need to keep the horses chewing to create the saliva and to buffer them. Horses can create roughly anywhere between 20 to about 40 plus litres of saliva per day to buffer the stomach acid. It's pretty incredible how much they can. Quick side note, to measure how much saliva that they do, they actually put tampons in the side of the bit, and they actually measure how much saliva is being created, and they take the tampons out and spin it to find out how much. That's how they find out how much saliva a horse is chewing. Sorry, it always makes me laugh. I can remember doing the research, and it's just like when we did that, where it was just so funny to find out it was just something like that. Remember that my professor came in with pots of tampons and we cracked up laughing. Anyway, that's a side note, sorry. But yeah, so that's why we want to keep the horses chewing. It's great, it's loud, it's buffing the stomach acid, but the producers all the damn time. Bloody animals. Uses of poorer quality forage or lower quality forage, we can use it and think about this. I suppose I'm bang on enough about straw, and I suppose it's because it's got me a bit baffled actually. And so we use the straw as a lower quality one. It's the bread on the table, it's fill belly, it's to extend the hay out. So if you've got X, Y, Z and you're looking and thinking, oh shit, I haven't got enough hay to do the season, that little too, you can put a little bit of straw in to extend the fibre out. And roughly, without getting into any diet problems, it's roughly about 20% of their daily fibre that most horses, apart from mules and apart from collies, that can handle. So then again, like we said before, lysine and thionine, 2 amino acids are going to need. Fats are little bits again, and then you're also going to have to bump it. People forget that horses actually need percentage of protein, the correct amount of protein for their diet as well. People get lost in a lot of energy and sugar and starches, but proteins are also really, really important. The other thing that I find and I see an awful lot, and it makes me want to bash my head against a brick wall and jump off a cliff, is please do never feed straw or hay that is such poor quality, it's over 69%, to foals, weanlings or yearlings. Their digestive systems take a lot longer to develop. They take on average between 18 months to 24 months to develop fully, so they can just survive on fibre alone. So please do never feed those guys at all. You'll see so many young foals and yearlings come in this year with really bad impaction colic because their hindgut cannot just break all that in laminitis friendly, a lot of the time the straw can actually be roughly about 17% NSC. So when it's done, when we find that, so yes, it's okay. You can knock some of that, you can knock some of the sugars out, but you can never knock starch out. So you can never do anything like that. People forget that. They think, oh, I can knock starch out as well. No, you can't. You can only knock water-soluble sugars out. So it sometimes isn't the best place for laminitic fatty acids. Next one. Conserve the hay you've got. I was driving through Collie today and I about pulled my hair out. There was just hay just scattered on the floor and there was all these horses just trampling on it. I was like, oh my God, they must have got money to burn. Consort, really look after your hay. Got this picture in the other day from a client. She sent me, look what my hippo did. The gates bent and the hippo decided to jump over because it wasn't happy with just the amount of hay that she was given, even though she's a hippo and she's on a little bit of reduction because her waistline's a bit back. She jumped in and decided to trash Laura's hay. Really good. So there's nothing worse than seeing hay trampled in. Use hay nets or use feeders or things like that, and you just always be careful if you've got wheels on the front of your horse's shoes, so the hay nets don't get caught up in the shoes. But if you're going to put it into hay nets and into bags and everything, it reduces your wastage of hay from 33 to 46%. That's a lot. So if you think about that, that's all the money that they're travelling on their pissing on. So, and also another one that I see people do as well, you see the thoroughbred and he's stood there going, I don't know how to eat out of these really, really tiny small holes. Oh my God, I can't do it. Oh my God, I can't pull the hay out. I don't know what to do. So make sure that they can actually access the hay. My mantra is another one that I've got loads in actual fact, but hay nets are like bras. There's one for everybody. There's the tiny ones or there's big ones as well. So there's a hay net to suit every horse. You can get the thoroughbreds, you can get the old-fashioned. It's hard to find nowadays, but you can get the bigger squares and they can pull it out quite nicely. But we need to make sure that they can actually access the hay. So don't put it around gateways, water troughs or anywhere like that where they've got to plough it in, roll on it. Use it as loo roll, toilet paper. And also, if you're very lucky as well, you can meter out how much you put out during the day for them. You can put it out a couple of 3 times a day for them, or break it down into hay bags as well. They're really good because it promotes a natural way of grazing, gets the head down as well, and they toss them around like pillows, but they're fantastic. You can get them all different sizes as well. And they're a bit harder to find, but they're a really good method to use, especially for young horses and horses that like to play. They're another good way to conserve a horse's hay. How are we doing?
You're right.
So this is basically when we send anything out to any aquaanalytical. So these are all going to be there for you. The road hay and the lucerne hay and the teff hay, very different colours. I'll just explain why that is, because they can be over 13% protein. When anything is too high in protein for hay, then we also look at the nitrates to sulfates, and that means will the horse be able to actually absorb the protein in the hays? And so usually those 3 are high. The teff one as well, the reason why that one's highlighted is if you use teff, you have to supplement it for oxalates. I'm going to literally bash my head against a brick wall and smack somebody. So if they do not realise that you have to supplement teff, also kite and buffalo, you have to supplement it for oxalates. We're seeing too many horses that are having fractures or they're having issues because they're not being supplemented for oxalates correctly. And teff is right up there with kite. So you have to, if you're feeding teff hay, you've got to supplement for it as well. Oaten hay, which is really a good one to highlight. When we get it tested, and these are all my results, we get it sent over to the US to be tested. I got it sent over by Martin Dollarstep, took me a hay sample, said, go and get that sample for me, because you've got a client down in Narrogin, couldn't understand why the horse's teeth were rotten as a chop, and the hay sample came back at 42%. Equianalytical actually said that they ran it twice because they couldn't believe it, they thought the machine was broken. So that was the highest that they've ever recorded. is just basically, and when we spoke to the chap at Narragin, he said when they're actually mowing the hay down, the mower got stuck on the sugars. It was that thick and that squashy, they kept having to lift the mower up. So yes, so that's why they're all hidden sugars and starches, not everything. So that's why we like people to ask for test results, because you just don't, they are so different and so right. Sizes of feeds, that's self-explanatory. We feed little and often, so we don't overwhelm the stomach, so we can actually break down the feed. We feed no more than 2/3 full of the feed bucket, so it's having a 10-litre bucket to make sure that all the feed stops down in the glandular portion of the horse's stomach. So when the acid comes up, it can hit all the grains and break it down. The feeds aren't too big, so none of it's going to pass through into the pyloric, through the pyloric valve, through into the small intestine, where it won't be able to be absorbed at all because the small intestine works to rule, likes the feed in the correct format. If it's not in the right format, it's not going to be absorbed. All gets sent to the hindgut. The hindgut goes, I don't know what to do. Oh shit. And so then it just gets made into a starch bacteria. So that's why we say that all the time. And so if you want to, if chaff becomes an issue, which it might do, we don't know how this year's going to pan out. But if chaff is an issue, then look at your looping fibres and pulls and tubes and things like that as another form of fibre to use. Right, if you've changed your hay, and another thing, if you've gone from, say, a meadow or a roads or something like that, and you've had to go to a more of a cereal-based hay, you'll find that there's a lot of difference between the energy values. So your meadow hay is roughly usually about 1.86 megacalories per kilo, where your open hay is roughly about 3. So you have to rebalance and you have to change. And it's the same with the pasture quality as well. It's not one diet for all the time of the year. You have to swap the diets up at different times of the year. You have to keep rebalancing and just making sure that you're going to change. And if you haven't got pasture, like we said before, if you haven't actually to quality pasture, I don't mean like tiny little bits of grass down there. I mean up to 16 centimetres high, so they can actually get the right area of the grass to snack on, and then they can get the fat-soluble vitamins. We do need to suck more fat-soluble vitamins, and omega-3s as well. The easiest thing to do that through is through linseed or linseed oil. When feeding different hays, teff especially, we have to prevent against oxalates, which is all about big head. And also as well, the teff, a lot of people go, oh, teff's perfect, teff's wonderful, teff's obvious like that. Teff also, if you're riding under rules, you have to be careful because it's not cyanide, it's cyanide, it's like an iron at the end. It actually tests positive, so you're racing under rules or you're riding under rules. Also avoid teff because it can test positive. And you don't want to win your first event and then go, fail the drug test. So just be careful with teff as well. And also it doesn't always come out low in starch and sugars. The same with anything, especially growing in WA, it's a lottery. It really is. If you grains again well, high in sugars and starches, and so are the leaves and the stem of the plant. If you yeah, we've said before, so that's yep. So that's basically So that's basically what we're trying to say, what a diet should look like. So vast majority of the person's diet should always come from fibre, and then we use the super fibres. So if you're mixing and matching and putting supplements in, that's another good fibre source. And they can use it as a source of fuel. They break it down. This is why we say it's called fuel. It's because it's not a starch-based fuel, so it's not going to give you that rocket that oats does. It goes all the way through to the hindgut, and it's fermented down, especially lupin hulls, and it's fermented down to the VFA, which is volatile fatty acids. And they're not nasty, they're really nice, they are our friends, and its name is acetic acid, and that is wonderful, and we love acetic acid because it does our horses good, it keeps them really nice, and they can use that fuel source, and they can use acetic acid as a fuel source for roughly about 70% of their energy can actually come from acetic acid, so that comes from the hays and the super fibres. like to feed a little bit of fats and oils using linseed, that's really good because it mimics as close as we can to your grass if you haven't got any grass. So it's high in lovely omega-3 and low in omega-6. Then if you're doing a little bit more work and you're actually doing the work and the horses need it to replace the glycogen in the muscles, then we can use some grains or some legumes with a bit more starch in it as well. And then we make sure that the horses will always receive their bits and minerals and salts, especially at this time of the season when they're working or when it's really hot. And it's different salts that you'll feed if you're up north, up in Port Hedland will be different to what you feed down here as well. And also don't forget your carrots. Carrots are really good. Carrots are fine in moderation. You never go over 2 kilos of carrots per day because then we start to impact on the vitamin A. If you've got a horse that won't travel very well, put them into your hay bag and smuggle them in like that so they'll start to snuffle through the hay and as well to try and encourage them to eat when they're travelling as well. But carrots are cool, carrots do the thing. If you've got a fatty, then we do it differently altogether. We can do the pyramid like we do for our food pyramids for humans and everything like that. We can do it for our ponies. So the vast majority, if you've got those wonderful Clydes that gets the fat on instead of an oily rag, they're super producers of volatile fatty acids. They can really extract all the nutrients out, and so that's why we can use those low starch feeds for them, because they can produce all that acetic acid. And so then we just top dress with the balance the minerals and vitamins up, and we usually use omega-3s and a little bit of salt. Also be careful with salt. People go a bit salt crazy in sometimes when the horses don't need it, especially if they've got ulcers. Just always be careful. You see some things that are really high in salt, and then they put 2 great big tablespoons of salt on top, and then your horse is like, I get that, it's a bit inflamed and it hurts a bit. So always be careful if your horse can actually tolerate salt. The inner area is if you've got a fatty and you need to reduce his fat content. So that's for that one. And these, again, we've talked about all the way through, gluten fibre cubes. We can add those, you can bulk your chaff out if you've got a fat, or if you want to put a different fat source in, a fibre source in. Put a different fibre source in, you can use the gluten fibre cubes as well. They are mostly starch and sugar, so that means that they won't give you the whoosh. The horse will break it down into acetic acid, and so it will give you that really good volatile fatty acids to use as your energy source. It's very, very good. And they're very, very palatable, and horses seem to like them. Because when you create a feed for a horse, you're always a bit like, will they eat it? And you usually give it to a horse and you'll usually find out pretty quickly. And they'll say, yes, we like it, or no, we don't. It's a little bit like, are you going to eat it? Will you be good to me? Yes. But they do. They really find it palatable. And so if you've got a shy fussy feeder, it's a nice one to do. And it's a fantastic one to put hot water on and make it on some cold winter's day. Make it with hot water. It soaks about in 3 minutes flat. And it does actually smell quite nice. I've actually tried them. They do taste quite nice. I think it's quite nice. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's I usually as well, so I'm weird. It's especially when you go to the mill and the music smells that gorgeous and it's hot.
Oh yeah.
Just you snack on that, especially the loopings, that's the best bit. But it's really nice, and it's not, please don't ever use it as a complete fibre source. It can't be used as that. You've got to use plenty, but it can be used to extend your chaff out. It can be used to bulk out your fibre, to put more fibre into the diet. But it's and stick to the recommended rates, please, as well. Because you see a lot of people just doing willy-nilly everything. We spend time working out those recommended rates, and they're there to help your horse. So it's another good one. But it's really, they do like them very much so. So we're very proud of LFC. And then the new kid on the block is our LFB, or Lupin Fibre Boost. I don't know how we ended up on that name. It had very, very various names. If anybody that's known me has known this feed has been called very many different names as we've tried to make and formulate it over the last few years. Well, this is a new one. So this is the Lupin Fibre Cube. And so we've improved on the Lupin Fibre Cube. to fill in the deficiencies in the horses' diets that we see an awful lot. So we've put methionine in, we've put lysine in, so you don't have to go to the feed merchants and buy those. We've put a really good chelated chelated mix of vitamins and minerals in as well to help. So again, to save you going and doing that. We've put quality major minerals in as well to bring up the amount of phosphorus and magnesium, which we see are usually very deficient in our haze across here. So it's quick soaking again. It's even lower in starch and sugars than than LFC. It's 4.21, so it's even lower. So it's a fortified vitamin and minerals as well. Can be made into a mash. Mine has been out for quite a bit now. I have one very snotty quarter horse who was very ill last year, and he likes this, so I was quite pleased about that because he went off his LFC when he was at the vet, and now he will eat this. Right, he will. But it's just made from WA quality looping holes, so it's going to give you that low fizz energy again, so it hasn't got the starch content. The starch content is about 0.2%, so you're not going to get that starch wash at all. We've put pre and probiotics in there to help your horse to increase and repopulate the bugs and bacteria in there. So it's going to be that good farm fuel. And most classifications of horses can use it. You've got your minis, big clients can use it, and it's sort of safe in most classifications of horses as well. You can use it to replace your chaff because it's got the fibre content. If chaff becomes scarce, you can use it for that, or you can shandy it in, mix it in with your chaff as well. If you've got a horse that's prone to choke, or if it's a guts, then always keep some chaff in it as well. But yeah, if your chaff becomes an issue and you just want it to be to smuggle it in, to mix it in for your minerals, if you're feeding them in a small amount, you don't actually need chaff at all. So it's another good final source for them. So that's what it looks like from Joe's very elegant photograph that she did for you. So on the left-hand side, that's what it looks like when it's dry, and then that's when we pop the double amount of water in. It puffs up quite quickly. If you use hot water, it will puff up within 3 minutes. It's soaked up really fast. And if you've got cold water, give it a good 10 minutes, otherwise it still gets squeaky. But it gets up there, so that's really nice. And it's more than doubles in dry volume. And this is the last slide. So this is some brief notes just on drought grazing. Just don't allow them, try and move them about. We see so many horses that are in paddocks and they're grazing on grass down there. Try not to get them onto that. We have to become better at looking after our pastures. We have to become nearly grass growers, and we have to look at the pastures and look how we're treating the pastures. Because horses are really, really bad on paddocks. They'll go in there and they'll just rip out grass shoots right at the roots where the sheep and cattle can't. So we need to take a lot better care of our pastures. We need to do more rotation, or we need to put some strip grazing in, or we need to use track systems, anything like that. Just so when you've actually noticed, when you see a paddock that's been put for hay, it comes back so much faster than when you actually see a horse paddock that's been nailed down and grazed down to the bottom, so they're eating well under root height. And also, the shorter that the grasses are, so that your horses, if they're grazing in that 4 to 6 centimetres area, they're just basically hitting where the growth zone is. So it's like the battery pack for the grasses. So the horses are grazing on fructose or they're grazing on starch. And so there's no wonder why the horses are getting all this starch, and either go stupid or the bodies can't basically take in all that starch because they haven't got the receivable sites. And there's no wonder why we see these horses with